In the chaos of World War II, survival was rarely a matter of luck. For one soldier, it came down to a single, terrifying choice: to stop breathing, stop moving, and become one of the dead. What followed was 9 days of unimaginable silence. 9 days surrounded by corpses, fear, and hunger. This is the unbelievable true story of the soldier who played dead for 9 days and walked away. Winter, 1944. The Eastern Front. Temperatures dropped below freezing. The air stank of smoke, blood, and decay. Artillery echoed across shattered forests as German and Soviet troops fought tooth and nail for every inch of ground. Among them was a young infantryman, just 24 years old, far from home. His unit had been ambushed during a retreat. Machine gun fire rained down, mortars exploded, and in seconds, what had been a formation of men became a field of bodies. When the shooting finally stopped, only the moans of the dying remained. Our soldier was hit, not fatally, but enough to collapse him in the dirt. Bleeding, dizzy, he realized he was surrounded by death. And the enemy was closing in. He heard footsteps. Soviet soldiers were walking between the bodies, checking for survivors, finishing them off with a single shot. He pressed his face into the mud, slowing his breath until it was almost invisible. One soldier kicked his leg. Another prodded him with a rifle. He didn't move. Seconds felt like hours. Then the boots moved on. He was alive, but trapped in a nightmare. He knew one thing: if he made a sound, if he even breathed too loud, it was over. So he did the unthinkable. He decided to pretend to be dead, for as long as it took. When night fell, the battlefield froze. The ground was littered with bodies, some his friends, some strangers. He lay among them, feeling the cold creep into his bones. He couldn't eat. He couldn't drink. He could only listen. The distant thunder of artillery, the occasional groan of a dying man, the whine of flies. He forced himself to breathe shallowly, just enough to stay alive. Time lost all meaning. He counted by heartbeats, not hours. By the second day, thirst burned his throat. His lips cracked, his wounds crusted over with dirt and blood. He could hear crows landing nearby. He wanted to scream, to move, to run, but he couldn't. Rain began to fall that night. Tiny drops fell on his face, his only chance to drink. He tilted his head ever so slightly, letting rainwater touch his tongue. Every single drop was hope. On the third day, hunger gnawed at him, but the thirst was worse. He whispered to himself, barely audible, "One more day. Just one more." Sleep was impossible. Each time his body tried to drift off, fear jolted him awake. He started seeing things that weren't there. Faces in the fog, voices in the wind. He was hallucinating, losing his grip on reality. One night, he heard movement close by, a scavenger dog sniffing around. It tugged at a nearby coat, growling softly. Then it reached him. He stopped breathing entirely. The dog sniffed, licked the blood on his boot. And then it left. He had survived another night. By day 5, he realized something chilling. The front line had moved on. The enemy was gone, but so was his army. He was completely alone in no man's land. He waited until sunset before moving. Slowly, painfully, he pushed a corpse aside and sat up for the first time in nearly a week. The sight was beyond horror. Hundreds of fallen soldiers, silent under a gray sky. He began to crawl inch by inch, searching for anything he could use. In a torn bread pouch, he found half a piece of dry, moldy crust. He ate it. It tasted like metal and dirt, but it was food. He whispered, "I'm still here." That night, he crawled further, following the distant echo of gunfire, a sign of life. Every movement reopened his wounds, but he refused to stop. After nearly 8 days, he saw smoke, not from battle, but from a chimney. A farmhouse, half destroyed, stood at the edge of a forest. He dragged himself there, collapsing against the wall. Inside lived an old farmer and his wife. When they saw him, they froze, thinking he was a ghost. He tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. "Water." The woman gave him a cup, her hands shaking. They hid him in a haystack, cleaned his wounds, and fed him soup. For the first time in over a week, he slept. The farmer warned him. Enemy patrols still searched the area. He couldn't stay forever. At dawn, wrapped in an old coat, he followed the farmer through the fields. They reached a muddy road where retreating friendly troops were passing by. The soldiers stared in disbelief. He was pale, shaking, and barely alive. His uniform was torn, his dog tags rusted. They thought he was one of the dead they'd left behind. But he was breathing. He had outlasted everyone's expectations, even his own. At the medical post, doctors said it was impossible. 9 days without proper food, without warmth, without moving. His body had gone into survival mode, burning muscle, slowing his heart. He didn't speak much about what happened. When asked how he survived, he said quietly, "I became what they expected. Another corpse. That's why they left me alone." He was later discharged, his health broken, but his will unshaken. He never returned to the battlefield again. Years later, when he told his grandchildren the story, they asked if he was scared. He smiled faintly and said, "Fear kept me alive, but hope made me move." His name may be forgotten by history, but his story remains a powerful reminder that in war, courage isn't always about fighting. Sometimes, courage is found in stillness, in silence, and in the sheer will to live when the world expects you to die. Thank you for watching this incredible story of survival. If you found it as moving as we did, please like, share the video, and subscribe my channel Forgotten Survival for more interesting stories from the pages of history and World War II. We'll see you in the next one.